and I hope you're here for Session A, Forage Species for Grazing, the old, proven, and new potential species, right? Before I get started, I remind you that I hope every one of you have an evaluation sheet. We ask that you fill those out and leave those here as you leave. Make sure you circle A on there, right, for this session, okay? And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today that's come here from New York, Mr. Don Wild. And let me just read you a few things about him. Mr. Wild operates Wild Acres Family Farm and has intensively grazed sheep, dairy heifers, llamas, beef cattle, hogs, miniature horses, turkeys, and broilers. The farm direct markets specialty meats and 3 acres of vegetable crops. Don has consulted with hundreds of livestock and dairy producers on managed intensive grazing, forage management, water systems, and fence systems for the past 30 years. He's retired from NRCS, where he was a conservation agronomist and grazing specialist for 15 western counties of New York. Don maintains contact with producers through a grass and corn seed dealership with King's Agri-Seeds, where they believe in providing the best genetics and service to producers. Don has a degree from Kansas State University. He's also received some additional credit from a number of other universities. He is a certified crop advisor and a certified conservation planner. So it's my pleasure then to welcome Mr. Wild here as our speaker.
All right, thank you, John. Thank you. I guess I'm all wired up, ready to go, and everything else. What a few things that John missed out on that introduction, but we won't go there. Yes, I was with NRCS for 39 years, all across, mostly all New York, and been around most of other institutions across the Western and Midwest and everything. Whenever additional forest was offered that dealt with grazing or forage management or livestock, I took advantage of it. I'm going to wander around just like our speaker earlier this morning did. I feel more comfortable doing that. PowerPoint we got for you today is the subject I was given is mostly on forages, the old proven, and the new potential species. And of course, a lot of this relates, my experience of course has been up in the state of New York. Yes, we do have cows in New York, we have sheep, dairy operations. We have more just in concrete and asphalt. So we got that share of it, but I'm about as far as from New York City as I can get and still be in the state of New York. So keep that in mind, okay? And by the way, we love to have it that way, far distance from the big city. As far as we're Wild Acres Family Farm, of course that relates to the last name and everything. And my wife and I are proud parents of 5 young men, which are pretty well all on their own now. So yes, I lost my labor force. The boys are helping us with direct marketing and fresh crops, especially meats for years. They had a lot of their own livestock, dairy and beef, and sheep, and so forth. And those got all marketed and sold breeding stock to support their college tuitions and so forth. We are located just north of Bradford, Pennsylvania, south of Buffalo, about an hour and a half, right near the Pennsylvania line, New York and Pennsylvania. Give you an idea where we are geographically. We're in the foothills of the Allegheny Mountains, or Allegheny Plateau. Rolling hills, those are only about 500–600 feet high, a little different than yours down here. So I'll give you a little idea on that. Okay, let's get into what we got here. All right, on pasture renovation, there's always an opportunity there to start renovating some of our pastures. And how do we do this? And when is it needed? A lot of times we inventory our existing forages and how intense we're doing with our pasture with our grazing system. Now, if you're a cow-calf operation down here and you got 10–12 pairs and you're grazing on 50 acres, all one continuous piece, you probably don't need a whole lot of this evaluation as far as renovating and so forth. If you like paying taxes on a lot of land that you're not maximizing the use of it, that's fine. But most of us are using the land we have available to try to maximize the use of that with production of forages and try to get the biggest return we can per acre to justify using it. Most of the operations operation. Wait, by the way, we own 1.5 acres. It's what we own. We've been farming as much as 45 acres at different times for hay and pasture. Our pasture consists of only about 4 acres, so we're not big producers. Most of the land I have up and down the road, small plots from 1 acre on up to 12 acres, is basically on rented ground. Not really rented, but our method of renting is bartering system. The landowners we use, they'd like to have us keep it clean, keep it mold or pastured, whatever the case, and just make it look nice. And in return, we provide them with different meat products and vegetable products. So the bartering system. All right, when is it needed? With inventory existing. Preparation, always soil testing. The application of any deficient nutrients. Soil testing, this past year, I was buying fertilizer, buying a 50-pound bag, and paying $18 a bag. And soil test up in New York costs $16. So it's cheaper to buy, or to get the soil tested on, say, a 10-acre lot, than it is to buy 1 bag of fertilizer. And that results in that testing can give me an idea that if I'm putting on excess amount of fertility. And soil testing for pH, very critical up our way as it is for you down here. New forage species, inventory of what could be used to satisfy your grazing needs on the different forages. And the methods, the old method of plowing and fitting, the no-till, strip tillage, broadcasting the seed, or the air blast seeders. There's many different methods now that we can utilize. Okay, success, failure, feel good results, very critical on any reseedings that we're doing, regardless of the method. A calibration of the drill or the spreader, and to get an idea just how many pounds per acre is actually going out. The depth of the seed placement, very critical. I've seen a lot of failures, and you folks have too, in different areas being renovated where that seed was just planted too deep. I would rather see the seed with a no-till drill or any other type of drill method to be just dropped on the surface and given its best chance that way than to be placed too deep. How deep is deep? Deeper than 1/4 inches on most of our seeds, most of our grass and legumes. Deeper than 1/4 inch will result in failure. Compaction, very critical. Soil seed contact. So a lot of times if we're broadcasting the seed on a till, on a prepared area where the soil is quite loose, broadcast and then roll or call back in 2 or 3 different directions. Should be sufficient to get that soil seed contact. Different renovations of our pastures. After we do the seeding, very critical on the management aspects, as highlighted here. Preventing weeds, native grass competition, keep that new seedings available to the sunlight and reducing the competition, and then evaluate any, if new introduced forages or new seedings we're trying to establish, if they're even existing there, kind of manage for those, and determine the method to proceed. If there is some need to change directions. And future top dressing as needed. No, we normally don't apply a whole bunch of nitrogen when the year we do seed it. Of course, or right at the seeding time. We don't want to encourage the competition. And plan for our future as far as based on our soil testing application. Some of the old proven grasses, get right down to the forage types and everything now. We're getting basically these are what you're all using down here pretty much as we are mostly in the northeast. Our Kentucky bluegrass, Bermuda grass, red top. These are some of the old colonial plant grasses, orchard grown, Kentucky 31. And then you got the warm season grasses, the root stems, the switchgrass, and then Timothy and the ryegrasses. And some of the old legumes that have been used for years. Everything from the bottom, lupins, soybeans, field peas, trefoil, clover, and alfalfa. And again, as far as grazing species, if you got alfalfa ground and you want to plant it, and again with the higher pH and the fertility and drainage class, and take that off for hay and then graze aftermath, that's about the biggest use I see with alfalfa. I always look at alfalfa and look at the keep that in mind. Trefoil is one that I'm trying to talk more of. Back 20, 30 years ago, everything we recommend on different forage mixes on the grazing plans or on farm plans consisted of versatile trefoil, the pasture types and the hay types. We got away from that in the last 15, 20 years and shifted over to a lot of clovers. On marginal soils, marginal as far as not so much fertility, but on drainage and pH, maybe a lower pH. By lower, I mean maybe low 6s rather than high 6s. Your versatile trefoil will out yield your alfalfa species. And as far as the quality of the feed, it's just as good as alfalfa, if not better. And longevity, I like trefoil for the longevity aspects of it. And thankfully, our plant breeders are coming along with some new varieties of trefoil. We have a lot of other varieties. All right, let's see what we got. So here's a bunch of species, everything here. You can read them as well as I can. Still being planted and grazed. Okay, here's some more on the legumes and everything. And these are, again, a lot of the new varieties and all, and the old. Improved and new grazing forages. Okay, one heading right there is one thing I've recognized years ago, that our plant breeders here back 20 years ago or whatever, the main thing they were concentrating on is alfalfa varieties and corn varieties. Very, very little or no concern whatsoever on our different grass species. And thankfully, our plant breeders, and I'm talking state institutions like West Virginia U and Cornell and Penn State, etc., and a lot of our private office, like there's an exhibit down below with Barron Broad, which is out there. Basically, most of their seed production fields are out on the West Coast, Oregon and Washington State. And their effort, and they recognized here 15, 20 years ago that these grazing environment, there's a whole inventory of folks out there, land managers, land users, that don't have the proper forages to use. And so there's a shift that seemed to be here 20 years ago to start developing and working with some of these old varieties like Timothy. And there's still the old variety of Climax Timothy, which was developed here about 70 years ago, and we still got producers asking for it. And whereas there's so many new improved varieties. Mentioned earlier this morning, Jim Gervish mentioned orchard grass being an early heading variety. However, now we got orchard grasses, folks, that head even later than a lot of other species. And there's some research we did in New York a number of years ago by planting about 20 different varieties of orchard grass, and then I'm looking at them every single day, and when one particular variety shows ahead, then we mark the date down. Anyways, the difference between the first and the last one head out was actually 22 days length. So you got your early heading orchard grasses that we're all typical or familiar with, and then you got your late heading varieties. So it's really helped us out a lot. And a lot of different hybrids and everything that are on the market now, something that we should take advantage of. Okay, some of the new grasses and everything. Well, okay, I just talked about the orchard grass, and then the top fescue. Now, top fescue, again, Jim mentioned this morning, the problem with the top fescue is the end-of-life situation and the toxicity and everything there. Now we have top fescue varieties that are low in end-of-life, or end-of-life friendly, or no end-of-life existing in those different varieties. So, and that affects the longevity sometimes on the plant. So oftentimes it's good to have some end-of-life in the top fescue to improve the longevity of the particular plant. But again, the research has gone into that over the years is tremendous, and to our advantage as grazers. Metal fescue is one that we've kind of regenerated here, or a new variety for us. There's a lot of advantages of metal fescue. A very fine grass, known for exceptional feed value, and will compete very nicely with a lot of our other forages. The perennial ryegrass, the dicoys, and the trepacoys, those are kind of tough down here in your state, I understand, because there's drier, warmer temperatures you would have in the summer. And so, the same few years ago making a comment that Timothy is like his school teacher friends. Works real hard in the spring and takes the summer off. And that's pretty much true for Timothy and the perennial ryegrasses. And the diploids, where you got 2 chromosomes, one from each parent for 16 total, and then the triploids where you got 4 chromosomes. So that's the difference on that. The diploids will be a little shorter and a little more bushier, a little thicker, and will have better longevity than our triploids. And then we got the annual ryegrasses. There's one that King Agri-Seed sells on the annual ryegrass and does really well. But again, we're talking basically on an annual basis, or and this spring, you have a lot of vegetative growth this year in the year 2015, and then you know, it will overwinter next winter, and the spring of 2016 it'll be here for cutting or for grazing, and then it will go ahead next summer. So it's actually treated like a biannual, but still referred to as an annual. And then the brome grasses. There's a lot of work done on brome grass, and it's interesting. You go across different regions, and like even in New York on the eastern side, the native grass you'll find on stream banks, road banks, or in waste areas, it'd be brome grass that grows natively. In the western part of New York, all your native grasses, or the one that does grow, is orchard grass. So just within a few 100-mile difference, one end of the state to the other, things change drastically as far as the native species. Okay, on the warm seasons. And we got the brew stems, their Indian grass, eastern gamma grass. Anybody ever do anything with warm seasons? Anybody plant those? None at all? Gamma grass, I experimented with that. Very interesting grass. As it ages, clumps get much bigger, and after about 6 to 10 years, that clump would be kind of bare, and you just keep the tiller and keep it expanding, and it would get pretty large clump, but it'd be a lot of growth on that, and very high quality grass. Use it for mostly for hay. It can be grazed. In our case, we were taking them off for hay. The millets, very interesting millets. The Japanese of pearl, the wonder leaf, just some of the varieties that are out there. Millets really will take a wetter soil than what a lot of other plants will. Heavy soils, if you got some heavy clay ground, you can get in there and till that. The seed is very small, these will be planted shallow, as I mentioned earlier, and will give you a lot of growth. You're talking probably around 3 tons of dry matter for that year. Excellent for grazing, can be taken off for baleage or for haylage, and or even dry hay to some extent, but mostly for grazing is where we worked on. Your forage sorghums, your sedan grass, and the sorghum sedans. Anybody playing around with those at all? Okay, good, good. There's some great publications. Yes, John mentioned I retired on a Monday and took on a seed dealership on a Tuesday with King Agri-Seed. I'm really fortunate to be with them for 5 years now. They have a booth down below, and there's some great publications down there. One is specifically just on the sedan grasses, sedan grass, sorghum sedan, and so forth. And by the way, the product information guide from King's, I have a copy up on the table over on that side. And pick up one of those. Even if you don't buy any seed from King's, this is a good publication here for you, just for information. And one thing we kind of brag about is in our pig guide here, a lot of just management info on grazing and haymaking and various other products. And so if you don't ever buy any seed, fine. We just like to get one of those catalogs in your hands. And if you get on the mailing list, then you'll get one every year sent to you in the mail. And so, let's see what else we got here. I was sharing with John here, I left Tuesday morning from home, had this PowerPoint and all my notes and computer and everything in a separate bag, and I got here Tuesday night and opened the back van and reached in for my bag. Wasn't there. I left it home in a hurry to leave and all that. So, and grateful of technology, my PowerPoint was sent to Joe Hatton's telephone. That email he sent to my computer at home, and my wife was able to forward the PowerPoints. That's how we got it today. Or else we'd just be ad-libbing this, or we'd be hearing some jokes from about this technology. And when I deal with computers, I use my Chinese name, low tech. So you know where I come from on a lot of these computers. And by the way, two of my sons helped me put this PowerPoint together. I did the narrative and everything, and they got it organized and all the trim. Yeah, so we're thankful for Mike and Sam on that. Okay, we got some legumes here, and then some of the new species and everything. And again, we got some alfalfas now. Now, there's a point on the alfalfa. Okay, yes, we can graze alfalfa, but how often? If we got that in our mix here, and there's a program I went to 10, 15 years ago, and there is an alfalfa expert from the state of Oregon was at the program. And so got going and had some questions and all. I said, well, wait, what about these grazing alfalfas? The kind that are kind of low growing and almost like stones along the ground and sending up shoots and everything. What about using them for grazing? He said, I don't care what you call it. Alfalfa requires 28 to 42 days for regrowth interval between harvests, whether you graze it or you hay it. Now, I don't know about you folks down here, but up in New York, if we wait 28 to 42 days, how high is the alfalfa? Is it 10 inches, 12 inches, or is it 30 inches? And if it's 30 inches, which it probably is up our way and down here too, you're going to bring the cutter bar in, you're not going to bring the cow. So basically, alfalfa, the grazing types, fine. If you're going to take off a few buddies for hay, and they come in and graze the aftermath fall of the year, early winter, or whatever the case, fine. First with tree plow, I mentioned that already. I'd like to see more of that introduced, not only in West Virginia, but up in New York. We're pushing that, we're doing a little bit more of that every year. I've got a study right now I'm doing with some lands here this summer. I seeded down some last year for pasture, and I put a little bit of orchard grass in. You'll see a slide on that in a minute. But what we're trying to do with the tree plow now on small ruminants, our goats and sheep, is see if the tannins that are given off by the birds with tree plow, hopefully those tannins are going to control some of our internal parasites. So we're going to be working on that here. Not only with Cornell, but the producers like myself out in Rhode Island, down in Virginia, and I think in the state of Maine they're in the study. Okay, the clovers. The red, white, calcite, crimson. You guys are familiar with the red and the whites quite a bit. The red's mostly for hay. The whites are hay and pasture. Yes, we can graze the reds too. And the calcite is our short season clovers. A year or two on those usually. They start a little quicker, and the crimson is mostly an annual clover. We're putting a lot of the crimson down for our cover crop. And yes, we can do a cover crop, and we can graze that off too. You know about the vetch, the hairy and the purple bounty, and cow peas is one thing that's being used now, and a lot of these forages are mentioned in our pig guide here for kings. And then summer hemp. I'm not familiar with the summer hemp at all. That's something new that came out this year, and I need to look into that myself even. Let's see what else we got. On small grains. Anybody doing small grains and grazing those? Anybody at all? This is a great opportunity for us, folks. Now, let me give you a scenario here. Say you've got your pasture area is kind of run down and needs to be reseeded. Anybody doing any reseeding or anything on pastures? Renovation, okay. What are you doing? What are you renovating into? Are you going from pasture to pasture? Okay, okay. And how do you work up your soil? Are you able to work it up fine enough?
Using cattle.
Do what?
Using the cattle.
Okay, using the calves to work it up, yeah. They shred in this new seed and so forth, yeah. Yeah, that's one definitely a good method. A lot of times folks want to renovate a pasture or hay meadow, and they'll basically take it, turn plow it, disc it, drag it, etc., and then come right back and maybe put corn in for a row crop for a year or two, kind of break the sod down so to be able to seed it down better. Now, oftentimes what we're doing now is taking our small grains, the opportunity we have after we do that, the fitting of that field, rough tillage or smooth tillage, and then come in with a small grain and get an annual crop again off of that field, either take it off for grain, or better yet, put our livestock out there and graze that forage off. These are great combinations. The forage oats and everything. There's some tremendous forage variety oats out there, not necessarily targeted for grain, but they're targeted for forage, for grazing, or to be taken off for a baleage or a haylage. And so there's some great mixtures out there for that. The triticale. We got winter triticale and we got spring triticale. They're two different animals. You cannot, well, you can do it, but it's not recommended to take the winter triticale that should be planted last fall and then get done to plant it this spring. It's going to come up, but it's going to be very spotty, uneven growth, and not really reach its full potential as it would have in the fall of the year. And then the barley, same thing. We get the winter and spring barley. Anybody around West Virginia doing sprouts? A lot of times the dairy operations are doing the sprouts as something promoted with some of our catalogs and companies and everything else. My way, we got a couple folks that are using those sprouts, the barley sprouts. And so if you're going to use that, plant barley to get the grain for sprouting, you want to use the spring barley. Just the opposite of what we're saying on the triticale. So the spring barley will really give you the grain that you want for the barley sprouting. And the spelts. Spelts have been around for probably, I guess, 400, 500 years. I've still got Amish folks up my way, and by the way, I deal with a lot of the Amish. So probably 2/3 of my customers are Amish that I'm doing with the seed business. Why? Because I worked with them on their grazing systems before I retired, along with a lot of the English, and now I continue to work with them. Not only on selling them the seed they need, but continue with their grazing plans and systems management and everything else like that. Wheat, the same thing, 2 seasons, the winter rye, and then the mixtures of small grains. We're putting a lot of different mixtures together. By the way, the triticale, anybody knows triticale, what's that cross with? Any ideas? All right, how about winter wheat and winter rye? More or less for cross to get a hybrid, they call it triticale. So it's got the characteristics of winter wheat and winter rye. And very nice mixture there. And then we're mixing small grains with our grasses at the same time. And doing this case, small grains with grasses, yeah, we could treat that as an annual, grazing off the small grains forage, and then the grasses or legumes mixed with it can be our perennial type of pasture or hay mix. So we can use the small grains as a cover crop, as we do a lot of times anyways. This one here. Okay, some of the other forages. One thing I'm really big on, I love brassicas. Anybody doing brassicas? The turnips, the swede, the kale. Anybody? Boy, you guys, this is a great opportunity. Great opportunity here. If you can get in there and work up hard, you don't have to, work up the whole farm, but just part of it. And I encourage you to try some of that. And using the purple top, I like using purple top, because what I'll do, and I take one end of my pasture system, and which is about an acre aside, well, about a half acre, I guess, and I'll plant that to forage peas and oats in the spring of the year. That'll be grazed in July during the slump. And then I'll work that up roughly, and then I'll plant there 1st of August, I'll put purple top turnips. And these turnips come up, and a lot of times I'll use forage oats, I'll plant with the turnips too, because the turnips are so hot, and for cattle or for sheep, any small goats, it's such a high protein forage, they get very loose on it. So by having it available, they can have the forage oats with it. Or if you got a paddock nearby where you have access to, and then they can choose among themselves and they'll mix their own diet very well and end up with some high quality feed there. What I do, I put the ewes on that in October on the purple top turnips. And after about a week, then the ram goes in with it. And this way I'm flushing my ewes on the turnips. And I'll end up with mostly twins and triplets, hopefully, following February, March. And the other types, I got the Barcant, which is a hybrid, and then the rate the swede, the kale, or some of the older brassicas. And one old one came out about 20 years ago, and still available as Typhon. And that was real good. I haven't got any seed from that in several years, but I see where that's still available. Crabgrass is something new we have in our King's catalog, and I haven't done any anything with that yet. There are some cautions on that. You don't want to let it go to seed, or then you establish a new weed on the farm and to deal with as far as the crabgrass. Daikon radish, anybody using that in your garden areas? Anybody hear about daikon radish? Anybody at all? It's the first time? Yeah, some even have. Some have heard about it. This critter, you know, it's got to be seeded down here probably by the 1st of September, and to really let it express itself. I mean, the root on this would be like a carrot. That'd be anywhere from 12 to 15, 16 inches long, and it grows really quick. It has a very high top on it. Sometimes the seed catalogs have like 15, 16 pounds to the acre seeding rate. A close friend of mine does a bunch on his veg crop fields every year. He'll take like 1/8 of his total acres in veg crops and seed it to daikon radish and kind of pull that out of production for that year, that particular area. And he said, what a big difference that makes the following year by the tillage and everything that this tillage radish will do with daikon. You got that long root, and that will rot down all winter long, and you end up with all these holes in the soil in the spring of the year. So you get a lot of pull in the subsurface minerals, nutrients will be pulled up to the surface and be available for the next year's crop. So it's one of the, and the reason I have it listed here as far as the forage is, yes, you can graze off that top in the fall of the year. When this daikon is pretty well done growing, you can put livestock on and graze that top off. Very nutritious, very nutritious. The different mixes and everything. BMR artillery corn with Master's Choice corn that King sells. One variety in there called Master Grades. Anybody ever do Master Grades? Another great opportunity. I have dairy producers that have planted that at different times, like every 2 weeks they'll go out and plant a few acres of it. And when they come to graze it, and it will be probably about 6 feet tall, just as it starts to form the tassel and everything on it. Right at tassel stage is when they put the cows in there. And I'm talking lactating dairy cows. That'd be available, and the first day they'll take the leaves off, the second day they'll eat the stems. And what we strip graze at. So by planting that every couple of weeks, they'll have this, you know, more or less a staircase effect on the forage itself that they'll be grazing into. So when the cows hit that next strip or the next planting, whatever, it'll be just at the optimum time as far as the life of that plant. A lot of sugar in the stems. They'll eat those stems right down to the ground on this master graze. Plus they got their other, you know, possibly grain back in the barn and hay, dry hay, and other pasture forages they'll have access to digest the corn plant itself. And the various cover crops. Mentioned that a little bit ago on the cover crops. Mainly putting those on for erosion control or adding organic matter to our soils, but at the same time, we can take those instead of hauling that green manure down in the following spring, graze off that. We still got the root system already established, and that's going to improve our soil tilth quite a bit. Okay, some simple pictures here. How well you can see it in the back. This is forage oats and forage peas. This was planted in the spring of the year, as I mentioned. You can see the mixture there, and I like a mixture because, again, the peas are quite hot, just like the Brassicas. Now you're mixing that up a little bit and mixing the diet. The way we're doing a lot of that, we're strip grazing that, and you can see where they've already been on the left side, and with the electro netting, and where they're going in the next piece. And you can see the critters in there, how they're, basically that's like a 2-day allotment for them, right there. In that area. And they'll graze that right down. You can see the lower part of the slide there is some coarser stem material that they leave behind. If you force them, yes, they will take that also. This is what everything looks like when they're done. And, all right, here's where the first foot tree foil that I put in last year. And I always like using orchard grass. I consider orchard grass the #1 grass in our area. Probably I would have suggest it down here also, in your area, your state. And one thing I like about orchard grass, and it's mentioned this morning, orchard grass and tall fescue, for instance. Once you remove that head, you know, you get vegetative growth throughout the rest of the year. I know with Timothy, it will continue even in the backyard, in the lawn area. You go out there in the middle of summer and it might be 3 inches high and the top 1.5 inches is a seed head. Always got the spiked seed head. Of course, they're high fibrous material, whereas we get all vegetative growth with the fescues, a little bit with the chrome, and then especially with the orchard grass, very thick growth. This is probably in the month of July, early July. Oh, that's corn in there too. That's that master grazed corn I mentioned. And that was about 2 to 3 feet tall. And we went through and we gauged that off with the ewes and with their lambs also. And you can see right in the middle of the slide is where we had division fence there on the previous. A lot of that stuff on the left-hand side is ragweed that came in, ate an annual and everything. And the sheep grazed that a little bit, trampled a lot of it. And we'll have to deal with that this coming year. So, okay, any questions?
On your birch foot tree fall, we've managed a good bit of it, but my issue has always been the fact that you gotta leave it go to put a seed at some point in the cycle. And in order to build that seed bed up.
Yeah.
Are they kind of, that, some years that's easy and some years that's not so easy. So are they coming out with varieties that are less, or more tolerant of somewhat more continuous grazing or a little bit harder grazing?
Everybody hear the question? It's on birch foot tree fall, the newer, and coming out with newer, hardier varieties that are more subject to, or will take the grazing pressure. And the answer is yes, there's come out with several new ones. And up our way, we've had a problem with tree fall on Brassicas wilt. And I was located for 10 years on the West Champlain area, which is over between New York and Vermont. And over that way back in the 70s and the early 80s, there's a seed industry over there where a bunch of producers, mostly all dairymen, some cash croppers, had this own producer-owned and operated seed cooperative. And what they were doing with that is harvesting X number of acres of birch foot tree fall seed every year. And would definitely, and then sell it as a cash crop and use it on their own farm. Well, what happened back in the late 70s, Brassicas wilt came in and killed off all the existing tree fall fields. And even the new seedings, it seeded like in the spring of 15, like this spring, and by August, September, tree fall will be gone already. Brassicas wilt. So what the reason I'm getting at is they came out with some varieties here about 10 years ago through Cornell and Penn State that are now resistant to the Brassicas wilt. So they've done a lot of research on this. They have 2 varieties right now called Hardy is one and Bruce is the other one that's being planted now that is resistant to the Brassicas wilt. And so yes, they're constantly working on that. If we had more interest, more sales, by the way, a year ago, birch foot tree fall seed was like between $7 and $8 a pound. This year it's down to about $4.50 a pound. I think it's $4.25 for a 50-pound bag. And so the price of that has dropped drastically from last year to this year. And hopefully that'll continue to go down where it's more reasonable for producers like yourself to try a bag or two. And what the seeding rate on that? 6 or 8 pounds is all we need per acre. And if you're putting with a mix with some clovers and everything, you can cut that down even further. So there's a lot of advantages we can use on these different mixes. By the way, it's firmly been established that where we got these different mixes, and we can do much better on our forages, whether for hay or for pasture, when we have 6 or 8 or more different grasses mixed in there, and the same with 2, 3, 4 different legumes, the clovers, the trefoils, and different types of clovers. The reds, the whites, and so forth. So, the mix is a little bit better. And different times during the day, depending on moisture, temperature, etc., you get different growth spurts of different varieties, different species of forages, and trying to maximize your, tonnage dry matter per acre per year is what we're trying to equate everything. And as I mentioned that, whatever you're doing, evaluating your hay production, pasture production, whatever else, try to bring everything down, legumes or grasses, of what your dry matter production is, rather than just saying wet basis. You might say, well, I took off X number of round bales. Well, are they at 8% moisture or they had 16% moisture? So it makes a big difference on the dry matter content. questions? Yes, sir.
How do you keep that birch tree from getting crowded out with the other grasses? I mean, I planted it and it seemed like the other grasses crowded out. I didn't get much light.
All right. How do we manage as grazers where we control either our grasses or legumes? How do we do that? By grazing light, don't we? If we overgraze a particular area, instead of like Jim was saying this morning, take it down to 5, 6 inches, if we took it down to like 3 inches, then we're going to favor the legumes, the clovers, the tree forms. So if we want to increase our amounts of clovers or legumes in our pasture, we're going to graze a little heavier. That don't mean every year, if we're grazing a paddock 4 times a year or 7 times a year, that every time we take it down, but we can adjust our grazing heights. So if we want more grasses and less legumes, we're going to graze a little bit higher and leave a little higher residue there. Anybody's doing that? You guys know about that, right? Sure you do. You've heard it before. All right, any other questions?
Radish, would you comment on using the radish in reestablishing pasture in a hard-packed area?
Okay, in a hard-packed area where we got a hard pan or fragile pan down at 10 inches below the surface, or maybe 15 inches, whatever, using the daikon radish will rupture through that fragile pan, that hard pan, and bring up some nutrients that are below that level, bring it up to the top. And I'm not talking phosphorus, potash. I'm talking stuff like the calcium, molybdenum, aluminum, or whatever the case, that were kind of deficient on the surface because of constant tillage and growth and everything for years. So yes, that radish has been known to, but the thing on the radish, as I indicated here in West Virginia, I would say you need to have that planted by the 1st of September. In New York, we get it planted by the 1st of August. I planted it in September already myself and had plants, but they were only maybe 5 or 6 inches long. They never established their full potential. And that's what you need to do. If you're spending the money on the radish, by the way, the radish is only like $2 a pound. Very, very cheap. At 6 or 8 pounds the acre. So it's a cheap investment for what we're trying to do on a lot of this. All right, that answer your question at all?
You plant that along with the grass and legume?
You can plant that with any other crop, but usually it's planted by itself, the radish. And that radish will get up 30 inches high, the top side. And if you plant it with higher population, same with the brassicas, and say, well, gee, Granddad always planted brassicas at 20 pounds the acre. All right, great, do it, but you're going to end up with a lot of small plants. Now, I do a lot of my seeding something like this, crank it on. So on the outside, along that wall, I'll have less seeds, less the brassicas than what I have right in front of me. Most plants on the outside are going to be much bigger, take up more basal area, and be bigger leaves and taller and so forth than these plants right in front of me. By the way, I like purple top turnips. Why? Because I sneak out there before the sheep, and I pull a bunch of them, and they go to market at $1 a piece. So if I can sell, 30 or 40 of them on a Saturday morning, that's a case for the seed plots. All right, any other questions?
Tap is established fast.
Which establishes?
Tap.
Tap. Good question. Anybody doing tap? Or you just read about it? It will establish very, very fast. Tap is a summer annual, a warm season summer annual. Tap, if you're going to plant tap, right on this carpet is ideal for seed tap. They say you want to get out there, fit the field, and you want to pack it, and you want to go through and just like whatever your famous basketball players, you want to bounce the ball on it. If you can do that, then it's ready to plant. The thing with tap, a lot of producers have planted it too deep. So it needs to be drilled or broadcast on that surface and come back through and pack it again. And tap will come up real fast. It's a fine grass, and the yields can be as high as 2.5 to 3 tons of dry matter per acre. And that stuff will get right up about 30 inches high and be very, very thick at the seeding rate of 4 or 5 pounds an acre. So it's a very fine seed. Most of our seeders, our drills, cannot handle it. So we mix it with coarse sand or kitty litter, so we can get the volume. If we can only get our drill down to say 10 pounds the acre, then you need to mix that teff or some of the clovers or the forage radish or whatever with something else. So kitty litter works real good. Coarse sand, if you got access to it, will work too. And just to give you that bulk. But teff is an excellent grass, but it's got to be planted the right way. If they say pack the soil before and after, you better do it, or you're going to lose it. There's no, you know, you don't have part of a crop or a good crop. You either have good crop or no crop. That's been our experience on teff. But it's well worth the investment. And it's only something like $3 a pound, whatever, for seed cost. So not bad at all. And by the way, horses love it. And a friend of mine's got a horse market he got established. He was planting 30 acres there for his beef cows, and then he was supplying some hay to horse people, and they found out he had this teff, and they tried it, and the horses just went crazy for it. So now he developed a market, a good hay market with these horse people because of the teff. And he does spray with a herbicide to control the broadleaf weeds. Any other questions?
Have you ever used like those radishes, like after you make your second cut in hay, and go in and seed some of that on there in your bare spots? You know, you always got the open spots to let it grow, to dig down through that hard pan, and to use it for extended grazing.
Yep. It's almost like going through a hay field or a pasture field with an aerator, where we're punching a bunch of holes in. We can use the forage brassica or the forage radish the same way and go in. But the thing is, by doing that, taking the second cutting off, as the gentleman here saying, then come back through with the radish seed. All right, how are you going to incorporate it in the ground?
That's why I didn't know. I
Yeah,
didn't know if
you
could
can
seed
broadcast it, then run through with a drag harrow or a pasture harrow to kind of disturb the residue on the top to try to shake down your seed. Again, what the slide said, soil seed contact, very, very critical, soil seed. And if you did something like that, or after a rain or two, and then come through with a call packer and, you know, pack further in a couple directions, keeping in mind you're trying to get that seed down into the soil or in contact with the soil. The seed's going to germinate, laying on top of the residue, or leaf litter, or whatever. It's going to germinate, but if they can't find a place to put the root, you know, it's just going to die right there within a day. So you got to have that soil seed contact. But by doing that, you're aerating your soil. You're adding some additional forage for later on that grazing season, fall of the year. Season extenders, I didn't even mention those. That's another big, big one. You know, extend that grazing season. You know, we've done it already up until Christmas, 2 feet of snow. As long as those cows knew that if you scratch through that snow and there's groceries underneath, bingo, they would do it. And we pulled the sheep off when the snow got about a foot and a half deep. But the, you know, the heifers and the beavers we had at the time out there, but they'll go through the snow. And of course, we ended up here a few weeks ago with some freezing rain. That ended up a nice heavy crust on top of 3 feet of snow, and nothing's going to get through that. Turkeys couldn't even get through it. But now it's been raining up there one this week, so we're not fortunate for that. Question you all have?
Well, I guess the grass has got everybody's attention here. But, I mean, is that a sort of thing you can do? I mean, does it do all of that, or does it want to be sweet real shallow?
Okay, the question on Brassicas, can it be no-tilled? Yes, it can, but if you're going too deep with the drill, you know, no-till, folks, is an excellent, excellent tool. And it's just that, it's a tool. And if you're going to get that too deep, you know, you can calibrate that drill, you got it all set up, and away we go, and we get that 6-acre field done, or 12-acre, whatever. Oh, wow, we did a great job. But you better stop periodically and check. No-till drills came out about 20 years ago, and I used to say I used to wear out the knees of my jeans crawling around the ground with a pocket knife that we all carry, right? Checking for the depth of that. We did a thing, well, neighboring county here a number of years ago, and they came out in the spring of the year with their no-till drill the district had, and they went on this sod or all grass pasture on a dairy operation, and they drilled 3 pounds of white clover on this pasture with the no-till drill, and that drill was cutting down 2-3 inches. I said, David, a little deep, aren't you? No, we're fine. Well, we came back that September in that same field looking for that nice clover coming in that interseeded with that grass. Not one plant in the whole field, that whole patch. Why? Because the troughs are still open in September. You know, it was so wet that press wheels didn't even close that trough there, we seeded it, and that stayed open all year. But the seeding depth, basically. And so, no-till drill, we get to your point, I would rather go through with the no-till drill and drop that seed on the surface and give that seed a chance. Because one thing nice about a lot of these no-till drills, what they have on the back end of them, for each little opening, say their openings are 7.5 inches wide, they got a packing wheel. They got a packing wheel. That's what's nice about no-till drill. A lot of the new drills come out here, the conventional new drills, have got a packing wheel. So you may be drilling every 6 or 8 inches wide, dropping that seed, but then you got a packing wheel behind each one. The old drills, I had an old drill I had one time, and used that for seeds, yeah, but it had a chain on the back that would drag some loose soil on top of it, but it had no packing wheel. And so just keep in mind, folks, you got to have that soil seed contact, and the tighter it is, the better off you're going to be. And I like going this way, and then even diagonally, we got the time. And we pack that, because not all our fields are as flat as this carpet here, this floor. They're all rolling, got hummocks or whatever, so it's great opportunity. There's so many tools out there. Hopefully, I want to encourage you here this afternoon, all the tools that are available to us. The new seed varieties, the new seeding methods, the seeding apparatus and so forth. To look into this and try to maximize your production, your forage production, on each acre of ground that you're grazing or taking hay off. The thing I always say, we're paying taxes on this land, or like in my case, a lot of it's given to me to use and take care of. And believe it or not, I treat somebody else's ground better than I do my own. And I like to make it look nice and everything, and produce more at the same time. So the more production we can get off to increasing our carrying capacity, our livestock, or get into some other enterprises, whatever the case, or not have to run as many acres up and down the road. It's what we own, what we operate, and then the other land that we're using, and maybe paying cash rent for it. So try to maximize what we're doing. Any other questions? How are we doing on time, John?
You've got about 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Did I keep you all awake? Yes. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, I'll be around here the rest of today and tomorrow taking advantage of the workshops that are outlined for us. And anytime, get a hold of me, bend my ear, whatever, or tell me what Aussie job I did or whatever the case. So, and contradict whatever I might have said.
Before you leave, remember your evaluation sheet, circle A, and we appreciate you leave those on the back table, and the break is, I think, back downstairs. We're going to give you a lot of exercise, so you walk back down. Let's thank Mr. Wild for a good presentation.
Well, they have downstairs. You can have this one here. Yep, I'll give you this one. I got some notes that you're right where you got it. Oh, there you go.
I don't know if there's any in the back or not yet.
I did want to ask a question about it.
Pretty good. How's that?